Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we are going to paint this Christmas bauble, and actually I will have a real-time free class for this in November, on November 17th at michaels.com/classes, so you can sign up for that, and I will have a link in the video description. It's absolutely free, and there is a pattern that you can download if you don't want to draw it freehand. I'm going to show you how I drew it anyway, just because that's how I did it. I started off with a circle. You can trace something that you have or use a compass, which is what I did, and those little flat compasses are so handy because you can stick them in your notebook, your sketchbook, wherever, and there's no pointy things on there. So if you have little kids that you're drawing with, you don't have to worry about them getting hurt. Now I'm using a couple different reference photos from Unsplash to design my painting here. I like the swirl and glitter of that red bauble, and I also like the bow that was on the snowflake bauble. So it's kind of nice to get those two elements together. I also thought it'd be pretty to put a like the green branch and the red and white bauble and a gold bow. I thought that would be very festive looking, and so that's why I kind of mashed up those two reference images. Don't be afraid to mash up your reference images and mix some things together so you create the look you want. I'm using the line maker pens that come in the Derwent line and wash set. You could use any fine liners you have, but I'm trying to keep most everything to this little set because it just makes it a little bit simpler, and it is a nice little set. And I also used that flat compass again to do that small circle, and I used it for the straight edge of the little wire that is holding the bauble onto the tree. I am just kind of freehanding in some pine needles and adding in this kind of wobbly line for the spiral here because the white stripes are actually glittered, and I wanted to have that kind of, jagged edge of the glitter to help kind of sell that texture once we get to the point where we're painting it. I'm doing some simple hatching and line work here just to give that ribbon a little bit of an organza lame type texture to it. It's kind of like the picture's like a metallic silver ribbon, but I'm going to change that to a metallic gold ribbon just to fit my narrative a little bit better, to fit the picture I'm trying to make. But of course, you can do whatever colors you want. You could do whatever style you want. You don't have to follow what I'm doing exactly. That's a great thing about making your own art, is that you get to do it however you like. Now, I lost my swatch for this set. I don't know what I did with my hand-colored swatch, and I highly recommend making a swatch anytime you have watercolor or any of these Derwent pan paint sets, because the little swatch that comes with it is nice for knowing what the color names are, but you're only going to get a really accurate color when you swatch it on watercolor paper. And the watercolor paper I'm using is the Derwent Inktense paper, which is kind of an off-white natural looking watercolor paper. You can use a watercolor greeting card if you like to, because this would be awesome for a hand painted watercolor card. So you have that flexibility there. The size I'm working is roughly, I think it's like 6 inches by 7 inches, just because I had a scrap, but this would definitely fit a 5x7 greeting card perfectly. So if you have any of those are great to use. I know I just did a class where we just used the Strathmore 5x7 watercolor greeting cards, and this would be perfect on that. This Derwent paper is 100% cotton though, so you might react just a little bit differently on a cellulose paper, but I find that this technique works really well on just about anything. You really can't mess up a line and wash. Now this first layer I'm going really light, and I am variating or kind of making a little bit of a variegated pattern here just by adding a little bit more color in some areas, so I have a little bit of just a little bit of interest, because it's not one solid blank color. I think it looks nice when you have a little variation there. And I'm doing the same thing with the gold. Now to make the gold, I'm mixing both of my yellows. I'll be mixing a little bit of brown in there too. The line and wash set, if you're not familiar with this product, now feel free to use watercolor if that's what you have, or you could use the Derwent Inktense. You don't have to have this set, but the neat thing about this set is that it's got some Inktense colors, it's got some graphitint colors, and it has some pastel colors. So you have a little bit of a sampler of a couple different products there, plus you get the water brush and the pen. So it's kind of like it's an all-in-one kit. You really don't need to have a bunch of other things, which is kind of nice. I like the little selection that they put together here. An urban sketcher, Jedediah Dore, put this kit together for Derwent, and it is a really fun kit. It's not colors I would have picked myself, which kind of makes it fun, but there are some really bright primaries, which makes it so I can mix the colors I need if it's not included in the set, which I really like. Now I'm taking some of the Payne's Gray and the Poppy Red and making this really dark. It's not quite a purple, but it's almost like this dark it's like a dark red, really dark desaturated maroon color. And I'm putting in the dark reflections on the Bauble. Now this is completely dry now. If you don't let it dry and you go ahead and layer up this second layer, it's going to blur. You're going to get a soft edge instead of a hard edge. And when you're painting glass, you want to get that hard edge. Otherwise, it's not going to look like glass. It's going to look, it might look more frosted. Instead of being a shiny glass Bauble, you get more of like a frosted glass Bauble, which is fine. And if you want that look, that's how you do it. So I always say there's no wrong techniques. There's just the techniques you're going for and other techniques. And when you make a mistake, there's nothing wrong with it because it teaches you something. If you do something perfectly, a lot of times you don't learn, but if you make a mistake, then you remember that and you learn a new way to do something, which, so I mean, that basically means you always win when you make art, whether you make mistakes or it goes perfectly, you're winning. So yay you picked up your paints today. You're a winner in my book. And again, I'm putting on some more layers. I did some layers. I added some brown to those two yellows to make kind of like a gold shadow and added that in the bow. And now I'm just adding another layer of red on the shiny Bauble part. And this time I'm going with the poppy red by itself just to kind of brighten stuff up and increase the intensity. Now, one thing I want to mention with these products in the Line and Wash kit, they're not as transparent as your traditional watercolors. They do have a little bit of body to them. So you can actually layer up that red over the darker color and it will knock back that darker color a little bit. So you have that little bit of flexibility. And if you're using the Inktense like pan paint set, the white is completely opaque. It's quite amazing. So, that's an option too. And I always say that try one of these projects with what you have first. And unless you're just in love with the project, you're like, oh, I love this. I want mine to come out exactly like Lindsay's. I'm going to buy exactly the same thing she uses. That's fine if that's what you want. But if you're on the fence, you're like, I don't know if I like this project, but I think I'll give it a try. Lindsay's pretty nice. Why not? I'll hang out with her for an hour and paint. Use what you have. If you have the Inktense pan paints, use that. If you got whatever watercolor paper you have, use that and see if that works for you. And if it does, great. And if you still feel like you want those other colors, then, you can go pick up those other colors. There's nothing wrong with adding to your stash as needed. You don't have to have this set with all the colors. All of these colors are available open stock, which means you can just buy a pan of the color you want. You don't have to buy a whole set. And if you use up a color, you can just buy that color, which I think is really nice. Now, I do use some white pens here. There isn't a white pen in the set. You can either use a white gel pen. I like the Uniball Signo, or you can use a white paint pen if you want more bold lines. You can do the bold dots with a gel pen. It'll just take an extra, few seconds. But I do like a thicker paint pen when I need to do a larger area, but definitely can just use a gel pen for that. And I wanted to show you this without anything else, just to show you just by adding that white pen, how much versatility you get on that set. But if you want this to shimmer a little bit more, which I think is fun if you're doing this on a greeting card and you're going to mail it to somebody, because they'll tack it up on their fridge or put it on their mantle and it's going to catch the Christmas lights and it's going to sparkle and look super pretty. So I decided to use some metallic paint pens to add some green on the branch, some gold to the ribbon, and some red and silver to the Bauble itself. And I think it turned out really well, regardless if you add the metallic pens or not. You could also use gel pens for that. And there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this preview to the free Michaels class I'll be teaching on November 17th. Be sure to click the link in the video description to sign up for free, and I will see you there. Happy crafting!